Coworker got me fired. Years later, I got the ultimate revenge. If revenge is best served cold, then my revenge was many years in the freezer and this week was finally pulled out and had whipped cream and a cherry put on top before finally being served. Background. I worked for Company A for almost a decade on a small team of 10 people, doing commissioned work for businesses in my city. The owner treated us like family, knowing that we worked long and hard days, sometimes up to 60 hours a week. He paid us better than expected, gave bonuses and perks negotiated with businesses that commissioned our work, and even gave the whole company a week off paid when his son was getting married so we could attend. We had our squabbles like any other family, and things weren't always perfect. But the owner treated his employees well and never mistreated me. After working there for years, the manager position opened up. Since I was one of the most senior workers at Company A by then, I thought I would apply, as did a few others. I didn't get the position mainly because, despite my experience, I didn't have a business administration degree. Someone who worked for the owner did, so he got it. Realizing the education I needed, I concluded that if I wanted to advance, I would have to get that degree. Coming right out of high school to work for Company A was great, but if I wanted to do something more, I would have to go to university. I talked to the owner and gave my 2 weeks notice. When I explained what I wanted to do and why, he understood and supported my decision. This all becomes relevant later, I promise. Going to university, I found that I had tuition covered through government grants but not living expenses. So I looked around and eventually found work at Company B. Company B was a retail store with a larger staff than I was used to, somewhere around 50 employees, but had such a high turnover that it was sometimes scary. They dealt with a wide range of goods from groceries to very expensive items, catering to a niche clientele. I ended up working part-time in their warehouse and reported to the warehouse supervisor, who reported to the manager. There were other supervisors for other parts of the store, but only the sales supervisor is relevant here. Skip forward 7 years. In that time, I got my BA degree and worked at Company B the whole time, going from part-time to full-time and eventually applying for the warehouse supervisor position. I was interviewed, got the job, and had been a supervisor for months when the manager and I hired Kay as a warehouse clerk. Kay isn't the one to get the revenge, but she played a crucial part in it. Then M gets hired. M started out as a cashier, quickly working her way up the chain and ingratiating herself with as many coworkers as possible, including the manager. When a sales rep went on maternity leave, M quickly jumped at the chance to work in sales and ended up permanently on that team, soon becoming the sales supervisor. M and I got along like oil and water. We butted heads constantly. She would tell the manager all the small things I did wrong but called me a snitch when I reported her issues. She would badmouth me and my warehouse staff, talk over me at meetings, and try to take credit for my ideas. She openly told coworkers that I was the cause of many issues and couldn't wait for me to leave. Oh, and she was never at fault. It would be the customer's fault, my fault, the delivery driver's fault, another coworker's fault, etc. There were times when we got along well, but they were few and far between. I get fired. One day, a very expensive ring set, over $5,000 as I found out later, ordered by one of our customers came in. Years ago, I set up a procedure for any type of jewelry to prevent it from getting lost or stolen. The last step is, once we have done everything with it in the warehouse, we take it to the office and have someone put it in the safe immediately. This particular time, I was the one who received the rings, so after following the procedure, I told Kay that I was taking it to the office. The only one available who had the combination to the safe was M. I asked her if she could open the safe. She looked at me, looked at the jewelry box in my hand, then said, "Put it down here on my desk. I'll put it away once I'm done with this email." Keep in mind that M and I had had a serious spat earlier that day, and I generally didn't feel like being close to her if I could help it, so I never saw her put it in the safe myself. The next day, I get a call from the manager to come to the office. I head there to find the manager, M, and the HR consultant they pull in when some serious issue arises. The manager tells me that the ring set has disappeared. I explain the procedure I followed and that I last saw the rings with M. The manager tells me that M checked the box and it was empty. The manager then pulls out the box. Sure enough, the box the rings were in was indeed empty. I swear to the manager that the rings were inside when I checked them before giving them to M. At this point, it's my word against hers. By a stroke of bad luck, the in-store video recorder had broken down days before the incident, so there was no way to verify what happened. We all knew someone had to take the blame for this, and that's when M strikes, saying that it was my fault since the rings were last seen in my hands. The manager asks if this is true, and I realize that, yes, I was indeed the last person to touch the rings, and I never actually saw M pick up the box. M gives me a look that screamed, "Gotcha!" The manager and the HR consultant ask us both to leave. After what seemed like forever, I get called in. The manager tells me that since I was responsible for the rings at the time and now they are lost, they would be firing me. But since they had no proof as to whether I stole the rings or not, they wouldn't press charges. which scared the crap out of me as this was the first time I heard they were considering it. I go back to the warehouse, tell Kay and the other warehouse clerks what happened, grab my personal belongings, and leave that day. After a couple of weeks of trying to get my head around what happened and weighing my options, I decide my first priority is to try to get some sort of job, considering myself lucky if I get a job flipping burgers with the bad reputation when they ask Company B. I call the owner of Company A to get a good reference from them and explain what happened and why I was calling, only to get the shock of a lifetime. The manager position was about to open. The guy who I lost the position to was retiring soon due to health reasons. The owner had kept tabs on me while at university and understood when I didn't immediately come back to him. But with a golden opportunity like this, he wanted me back, and I wasn't going to say no. I dive into my new job I originally wanted with an owner I enjoyed working for. I thought, then and there, everything would be behind me, not knowing it would come back, not to bite me but to pay dividends. The revenge case side. This I found out after M.'s reckoning. After I was fired, Kay knew she had to do something about M. Kay knew that I wouldn't lose or steal something like the rings. But she also knew that, without proof, M would deny that she did it and have Kay in her crosshairs next. So, after talking with her husband, she hatched a plan. She started hanging out with M, saying things like, "I'm so glad he's gone," or, "Wish he had been fired much earlier." M, feeling triumphant after getting rid of one of her thorns in her side, soaked it all in. After a couple of weeks, she invited Kay and Kay's husband, from now on KH, for drinks at her place with her and M.'s husband MH. Months passed, and Kay and KH regularly did things with M and MH, including drinking on weekends and couple-related events. When together, Kay would occasionally badmouth me, and M would agree. Finally, after over a year of playing nice, when Kay and KH were over at M.'s for one of their drinking parties, Kay randomly badmouthed me, mentioning the rings in passing. Then, M said something that Kay was waiting for. "I wanted those rings, so I stole them." Kay, hearing this, asks for more details. KH tries to wave her off with one hand, then gives up when M keeps talking. That day, M had stopped writing her email and was going to put the rings in the safe. The safe was open and she was about to put the rings away when M had an idea. See, as mentioned above, M wanted me gone from Company B. She also wanted those rings. She also knew that the cameras weren't working. She figured that she could pocket the rings, tell the manager they were missing, and spin it so I would take the blame. Kay then asks where the rings are now, and M, being too drunk and not seeing a reason not to brag, not only tells her but shows her where they are in her room. All while KH had been recording the whole conversation on his phone. The hand-waving was him indicating he had started recording. Kay gives a copy of the recording to the manager the next workday. The police are called immediately. M is arrested, and her house is raided. They find the rings. Kay and KH give the recording and testimonies to the police. M.'s reckoning has begun. Revenge my side. I get a call from the prosecutor's office after M is arrested and charged with theft over $5,000, among other things. He wants me to testify about what she did to me. I didn't hesitate to say yes. Fast forward to the trial. The prosecutor has me, Kay, and KH testify and plays the recording of M admitting that she stole them. Her attorney tries to argue that Kay got M deliberately drunk, but the judge didn't buy it since there was proof she drank all the time. The judge was lenient and gave her 5 years in prison, which she yelled was unfair, but I personally thought she got off easy. Meanwhile, as the trial was happening, I was talking with a lawyer to sue M for setting me up like she did. We were also going to sue Company B for wrongful termination, but they settled the day they got notice of the lawsuit, knowing they would lose. M wasn't so lucky. They tried some trickery by having MH divorce her and receive everything in the divorce, but my lawyer added him into the lawsuit as well. My lawyer asked overall for $3,500 for emotional distress, back pay from when I was fired until I started up with Company A again, and legal fees. And now, you are wondering where the metaphoric cherry is on this story? Well, recently we had someone leave Company A, so we were hiring to replace them. The owner was going over the resumes and set up interviews for the job this week. Lo and behold, M was one of the applicants, but he didn't know that. I looked at the resume, was about to trash it, but then smiled. The owner set up the interview. She came in at her scheduled time, looking to ingratiate herself as usual. Then she saw me. I smiled an evil smile and she went white. All I said was, "Ah, M, how are you? Remember me?" She gave me a deer-in-the-headlights look. I looked at her resume and said, "I'm sorry, I do not think you will be a good fit for our company. Thank you for applying." She said not one word and left.